Welcome to this episode of YouTube. This is the season of social rallies, and this time of the year, around the end of April, is when pups in the wild would be born, and there is a seasonal cycle of prolactin hormone, which makes for a little bit more tail wagging, a little bit more greeting and social interactions. That's Bolt's doing a four-leg stab at Grayson in the slate den. Axel kind of walks away and doesn't get involved. But notice Aiden is down here on the edge of the pond. He's certainly excited about the rally, but not quite confident enough to go join in. And so you see his tail is up and he's wagging. And again, this is the time of the year when we see a lot more of those kind of social interactions versus the wintertime, definitely rank order driven. So we did have a crew from the college came in last week and got a lot of cover hay out. We are trying to get things to melt, and actually this footage was taken just about 5 days ago. We have now since lost most of this snow, so the good thing is that by the removal of the excess hay, we are actually getting down to the lower layer of ice, and so that's going to only be a matter of time before we can get the pond running. But like I said, Aiden is helping us a little bit there and pawing at some of the straw, but he is doing better. The antihistamine seems to have slowed the mast cell growth. He's not focused on it at all. As a matter of fact, the area that he had been licking has now dried up, and so there's no real indication of there's just a small, again, pea-sized lump that remains, and it's dry, and he's not focusing on it at all. So that's a really good prognosis for him, and we're going to watch and see how that progresses. So Grayson again is really showing some strong social interactions with Aiden, resting with him on the pump housing. We had some footage on the first rain day here late last week where Grayson and Aiden shared the slate den together, so they're physically resting with each other, and wolf care staff are obviously in there greeting the wolves, and you can see this kind of calm that's kind of settled over Aiden as well as Grayson. But for Aiden's sake, it's been tremendous to have that kind of relief from the tension that he'd been under for the last couple of months. So as I said, he still is, in probably Grayson's mind, the pack leader, even though it seems like Grayson's taking a lot of opportunities to assert status over Denali. And so it's interesting, and you kind of wonder if Grayson's mindset is such that he sees Aiden as kind of a support as he kind of moves his way up. So another sign of summer is the greeting rock is being used again, and this is Bolts on the greeting rock. So, and the biggest concern we have for Bolts is the bug season, so we're going to wait and see how that progresses. So far we've had no insects this year. It's been a little bit chilly in the mornings, and when it does warm up during the day, we tend to have a significant amount of wind that comes with it. So haven't seen any phobia issues with him yet, but we'll kind of be keeping an eye on him. But the warmer part of the day is meaning that we're going to probably see wolves become a little bit more nocturnal or a little bit more crepuscular, active at dawn and dusk. But the warmth of the sun typically is a resting time for the wolves, and so we're probably going to see a little bit of transition on the webcam, not as frequent on the camera during the day, but frequenting the camera more in the early mornings. Obviously when wolf care it comes in, that's a strong stimuli, but for the most part seeing activity into the dawn and dusk. Denali showing a little bit of raised leg urination there, kind of a modified raised leg urination, still posturing quite a bit, showing a little bit of resistance to Grayson. And he had a little bit of an interesting feeding on Saturday night where Denali seemed to kind of run the carcass. Denali and Aiden, actually. Aiden had a leg, and you can see Aiden on the pump housing chewing on that deer leg. But here, Denali is now allowing Bolts to come towards the carcass, and Bolts is reverting back to pup behavior, what's called food begging behavior. In the ethogram, we actually code this as obnoxious submission as well, but kind of reverts back to that puphood feeding response where they're begging for food from the adults. And so obviously this is, these wolves are fed on a regular basis, but yet when Denali controls the carcass and doesn't allow Bolts in, he reverts back to that kind of food begging behavior. So licking inside the muzzle, rubbing under the chin, Again, turning the head, dropping the body as low as they can, being extremely subordinate. And that's a pattern that Bolts does when he's anxious, but he also does it when he's looking for food. So it's our job as wolf care staff to really watch that and see who feeds, when they feed. You know, is there a circumstance where we need to supplementally feed? And we obviously want to keep an eye on that. You can tell who Denali allowed to feed. Axel's got the red blood across his face, his muzzle. He'd been in on that carcass the whole time. And actually, Denali didn't really eat much. He allowed Axel to feed, but didn't allow Grayson and Bolts to feed. So why? It's hard to say. You know, certainly Grayson's been posturing over Denali, trying to gain quite a bit of rank. So food behavior and rank order behavior are different. Food behavior is, you know, anyone has the right to guard and possess food as long as they're on it and around it. And so, you know, maybe there's some circumstance where Denali is favoring Axel because Axel's not as domineering over Denali as Grayson is. So you can see that lip curl threat display, and Bolts is going to risk it, but here's what happens is that Aiden comes over, and Aiden starts to posture as well. So interesting dynamics, and it's going to change obviously on a weekly basis in the exhibit pack. Over in retirement, we're getting ready to do a medical assessment on Luna. Definitely we want to check out that back right leg, and you can kind of see how it's a little bit held out to the side. It's been 2 years since we've had an x-ray of that. We're also going to check her thyroid, which she has been getting half of the resources that we would normally have given her. We are only feeding her Monday through Friday, and yet she continues to gain weight, and obviously we know that she's supplementing because she caught 2 snowshoe hares that we know of, but we are trying to really design her diet as best as we can to get her to lose another 10 pounds, but that's not seeming to happen real well, so we're checking that out. In addition to the skin irritation, we are going to, like I said, check her thyroid and see if maybe there's something that might be going on there. We're going to check her vitamin D, which has been her problem since she was a pup, is the ability to maintain vitamin D in her own. So we've discontinued all supplements, D supplements, and vitamin supplements for last week, and then are going to try to be able to see what her blood work does as far as supporting that on her own. We need to check her also for Lyme's. She had moderate level of titers showing that she'd been exposed to Lyme's disease, so we're going to check that as well, because obviously a Lyme's diagnosis is a problem with joint issues. Grizzly's had a great winter. He's mobile. The turmeric is really kind of the one thing that we've changed in his diet, a nutritional supplement that seems to really been helping his mobility in his joints. And again, it's anecdotal. We don't have any, blood work or any proof of that, but just the way he's moving and timing, I think that's been a real bonus for us. So that's it for this week. We do have a webinar on Wednesday night, Grayson and Axel Turn 2. So if you'd like to join us, log in to wolf.org and check under programs and webinars, and we will keep registration open until noon on Wednesday. See you again.